Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Katie, and today we are going to be talking about all the books that I read in February. So I have my handy reading journal here, which has helped me a lot the past couple months by bringing this up and already having my list printed, so I don't have to worry about like writing up a list. I already have pictures and everything in here, so it has really helped a lot. If I can find the page, there we go. And it's organized by star ratings. So let's go ahead with a few statistics. Don't worry, not page count or anything. I really haven't figured out how to do that, so I'm like, that's okay. All right, so I think I read one or two graphic or comic books. I don't count those toward I count them towards Goodreads. I don't really talk about them because they're just kind of leisurely reading. So I think I read one or two Archie comic books this month, which I normally read a ton more than that, but I've been stuck on other books, so only two this month. All right, so I read, I had two DNFs, but I read two middle grade. And then I read, I think the rest is Christian fiction. So I read 12 Christian fiction. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the DNFs first. Aside from the DNFs, I had an amazing reading month in February. Nothing was below 3 stars, which is great. So the DNFs that I had this month were the first one was The Counselors by Jessica Goodman. And this was part of my going to a blind date with a book at my local library. They only had YA books. My other library didn't have any, which they normally do. So I had to go to another library and they only had YA options, if you know me, YA is very hit or miss for me, mostly miss. And this one was. I didn't even get a few pages into it, and I went and looked at Goodreads, and the reviews and the synopsis and everything, even though it was listed as a thriller, it just seemed so boring. And so I was like, I don't think this is going to be for me. So I DNF'd it. It wasn't that great from the first few pages anyway. So I was like, should I count this toward my DNFs? And I was like, yeah, I mean, technically, even though I only read a couple pages, I did decide to DNF it and never read it again. So nothing bad in it from what I read, I don't think. But I was like, nah. All right. And then the next one that I DNF'd has a definite reason behind it. And that was As Bright as Heaven by Susan Meisner. And I read another book by her and I enjoyed it. So I was going to buddy read this one with Mitzi over at Mitzi Reads and Writes. I will link her channel down below. And we started reading it together. And I think I got quite far in it. I think I got about 20% into it. And I was just like, the entire thing was nothing except talking about death and the mortuary and the mom's obsession with death and with learning the mortuary dealings and the business. And I'm just like, I'm kind of tired of it. There's nothing else going on really. I'm sure it had more depth as the story went on, but it was just too depressing and too much death talk for me. So I was like, you know what? This ain't happening. I will probably try other Susan Meisner books in the future, but yeah, that one just was not for me. All right, on to books that I actually read this last month. Okay, so the first one was Saving Lucas Biggs by Marissa de los Santos, and I think she co-wrote it with her husband. It's by David Tigu, I think. But I believe they're husband and wife, and it's Saving Lucas Biggs. I gave it 3 stars, and I forgot to mention how many star ratings that I have. 2 3 stars, 2 3.5 stars, 1 4 stars, 1 3.5, almost 4 star, 1 4.5, and 5 stars. So I forgot to mention that. Sorry about that. But yeah, so back to 3 star Saving Lucas Biggs. I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. It just, I don't know, there wasn't anything. It was kind of just like a book that, yay, I read it, but a 3 star to me is I wouldn't pick it up again, probably. and it just kind of found it meh. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. So this one is about a girl who her father is being accused of murdering someone, and he's on death row pretty much. And so she finds out all of a sudden, we have no idea, we have no backstory of her family, but she finds out that her family are time travelers. And so she's going to try to go back to see why this judge has such a grudge against her father and to see if she can change his heart. And I like that part a lot, and how we see things going on from the past and the present, but there was like no backstory. That's another reason why I gave it a lower rating. There was no backstory. We don't know why her family are time travelers. Like, there's no explanation for that. And there's also like no like she all of a sudden knows how to time travel. Like, she's not even really taught it. So I'm like, okay, like her family had time travels and she's now just learning how to do it. Like, it was kind of weird. So that's why I only gave it 3 stars. All right, next 3-star that I have, it's probably closer to 3.5. That one is The 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith. So I don't know why I gave it such a low rating. There were parts in it that like I really enjoyed, but then there were parts where I was just like, kind of just, it was a little slow for me. Like, I tend to like, if I know the story like really well, because like it is one of my favorite Disney movies, but to me, the story, I prefer the movie. I know. Like, what are you doing? You prefer a movie to the book? Yes, I do. I prefer the movie to the book. I don't know. It's just, it was good, but, and Cruella de Vil is definitely more cruel in this book than she is in the movie. That's for sure. At least that's why she appears. But yeah, so definitely, even though this is a middle grade book, there's definitely some stuff in here that Cruella does where, like, if you're an animal lover, you might want to skip this book. So yeah, so it was pretty good. I did enjoy it, but I don't think it's more than 3 or 3.5 stars for me. Next one that was 3.5 stars was Set the Stars Alight by Amanda Dykes. This was our Christian book club pick for February, but I didn't get to it. Well, no, sorry. Buddy Read pick for January, but I didn't get to it until like until the first couple of days of February. So it was our book club pick for January. We'll get to February pick in a second. But yeah, so 3.5 stars. I know other people really enjoy this one. This was my first Amanda Dykes book, and to me, I was listening to the audio, and she has a very lyrical writing, a very beautiful writing. And so through the first half of the book, I found it kind of hard to concentrate listening to the audiobook. I wish I could have listened or read the physical book. I think I might have gotten a little bit more out of it, but I did enjoy the last half of the book. So it is dual timeline, and I honestly don't really remember what happens in the past timeline. Okay, I kind of do. So in the past timeline, there's like this love triangle going on, and there's this man who falls in love with a woman, or 2 men fall in love with a woman, and the 2 men go on a ship, and they are friends, and we kind of see their relationship and how their relationship stays so strong, even though the other man loves the woman as well. And so I did like the romance behind it, and how the other friend truly was a friend and kind of gave up a lot to be happy for his best friend and his girl. So I really did like that part. And I did like the modern timeline, because we're talking about, again, 2 best friends and their father, or her father. He tells her before he passes away all these beautiful stories and children's stories. And we come to find out that these stories might end up actually being true stories. And so these 2 best friends in the modern timeline end up trying to find out if the stories are true and lead them to possibly something. Gonna leave it at that. No spoilers. All right, so that was Set the Stars Alight by Amanda Dykes. If my thoughts were a little bit scattered, so was my reading. So I'm sorry. All right, the next one that was 3.5. I feel like I could have given this one 4. It is sticking with me a little bit more than the other 3 stars, and that is The Innkeeper of Ivy Hill by Julie Clausen. I do have that book as well, but I think it's up on my top shelf. But yes, so this is the first book in a series, and I actually really did enjoy this one. I don't know if I talked about it in a previous video, But I really liked it because we're talking about a girl or a woman who she becomes a recent widow, and so she ends up inheriting her husband's inn, which has been in his family for generations. And so his mother-in-law ends up coming back after he passes away to kind of what seems like meddling and trying to see if her daughter-in-law is actually going to take care of the inn or if she's going to try to sell it. So we follow their relationship, which I absolutely enjoyed. And then we follow romance as well. Not really romance as far as the widow goes. There was definitely some men who were flirting with her, but we're following her mother-in-law's possible romance in the book. And I love that because we hardly see romance with older adults in books. And so I really enjoyed that part of the story. That was actually probably my favorite part of the entire story. And then there's like these mysterious happenings. There's some like mysterious things that don't add up in her husband's death. So there's definitely some mystery going on in there and going on with the inn and people who are trying to buy the inn. So it was actually quite enjoyable. I probably would give it more closer to 4 stars now that I think about it, but I did give it 3.5. So I will definitely be continuing that series. Probably not right away, but I definitely will. All right, the next one that was 4 stars was, actually I'll go with the other 3.5 to 4 star. I really couldn't decide. If you see in my notebook, I actually put 3.5/4 because I really couldn't decide. So this is Daughter of Eden by Jill Eileen Smith. All right, so I did a whole book review on this. I will link it down below. But this is Jill Eileen Smith's newest release, Daughter of Eden. I was on her launch team, so thank you. That was awesome. And she's one of my favorite authors. But this one just wasn't an absolute favorite for me. I still really enjoyed it. I really honestly feel like the last half of the book was my favorite compared to the first half. So I honestly thought this book was going to be just about the Garden of Eden and the fall of, eating the apple and being cast out of Eden. And it's a lot more than that. It actually follows Eve throughout her entire life. So we're following Cain and Abel, her children. We follow Seth. We follow so many generations of people in Eve's life. So I really actually enjoyed that part. And I definitely would recommend it. If you like biblical fiction, it's definitely something very different. And something I did forget to mention in my review is that this is kind of dual perspective. It's definitely like 90 to 95% Eve, but there's also perspective of Satan as well and his fall before he tempts Eve. And so we see that as well and see him influence Cain and Abel and the sin that's in the world and stuff. So I did enjoy it. All right, I'm not gonna put it back up there. Too hard. Okay, next book that I read. I keep losing sight of all my books. What is up with that? Where did I put it? Oh, Mom's reading it this month. I'm like, where is my book? Mom's reading it this month. So it's downstairs. All right, anyways, so the next 4 star that I had was A Bridge of Gold by Kimberly Woodhouse. My first Kimberly Woodhouse, and really enjoyed it. This is actually almost 3 timelines. It's not quite 3 timelines, like it's 2 timelines, but it's also talking about another timeline that happened before. So in the modern timeline, book's falling. In the modern timeline, we're following this girl who is kind of I don't know if she's not really an anthropologist kind of, but she's like an underwater anthropologist where they end up finding bones underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, I think. But they end up finding bones there, and so they're trying to figure out because there's 2 skeletons and they're from different eras. And so we see this timeline and we see another timeline where a mystery is kind of happening along this possible treasure hunt for treasure where an abandoned ship was sunk near where the skeletons were found. And so it is definitely adventurous. There's definitely high stakes going on. I did definitely really enjoy that one. I think if you like a treasure hunting adventure type book with a little bit of romance, and actually I really enjoyed the faith content in this as well. The faith content was absolutely beautiful. It was woven beautifully in the book, and so definitely check it out if you enjoy treasure hunting good times. I finished Isaiah's Daughter this month. So I had this weird feeling that I've read this book before. I don't know if I have or not, but this is Isaiah's Daughter by Misu Andrews. But as I was listening to the audiobook, I just felt this weird feeling that I've read this book before. I'm like, but if I did, it was before Goodreads, because Goodreads had no listing of me reading it. So I don't know. Anyways, so this is the first book in the Prophets and Kings series, and I read the novellas first, and then I read this one, and this one was really good. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. But we're following, what's her name? Ishma. So she is a orphan that was kind of kidnapped and rescued by one of Isaiah's people in his household. So Ishma becomes Isaiah's servant, but then later on, God's plan for her life really changes, and just kind of her bigger picture, like she comes from nothing, but God has such a huge plan for her life in the future king's life. So very good. There is definitely there is trigger warnings in here for miscarriage, as well as I think there is a mention of hurting a girl, but it's only mentioned, it's not described or anything. But those things are in this book, so be careful as you read this one. But yeah, so there is also talk of false gods in this book as well, but it's like, it's in the Bible, and be careful with what you read. But Misu does so much research into it, and she doesn't portray it as good. Like, we know it's bad in her books, and but that's what happens in the Bible. Like, they had false gods and everything. And so I really enjoyed this book. I loved Isaiah's Daughter. It was really good, and the faith woven in all of Misu Andrews' books are excellent. I love her stories so much, so definitely check it out. All right, so the next book was 4.5 stars, and that was Winning His Trust by Toni Shiloh. This was another one that I was on her launch team for this past month, which was amazing. I really enjoyed this one. This one actually follows another a sister of the guy in a book before this, but you can read this as a standalone. You don't have to read the other one, which was her Christmas Redemption. So this one is about Jordan, and I did a whole review of this. I'll link it down below. But Jordan is working at her family's general store, and she went to college and got a degree in business, but her family doesn't know that. They think she kind of just gave up on college, but she did go back. She didn't tell them, but she ends up wanting to help the business get way better than what it is. But her brother is like, you've been gone for years. You have no idea what you're doing. And so she ends up trying to prove herself by working with Declan, who has kind of a, I know it says back here, struggling adventure business. And so she partners with him to get his business better, so she can prove that she can really do it. And so I love Toni Shiloh's book. She's amazing. I have not given any of her books under 4 stars yet, so definitely check her out. Well, this is my only 4th book by her, but I loved it, so definitely check it out. All right, I'm not going to put that back. All right, so the next one that I read was our buddy read for February, which was for my Christian book club. That was Counted with the Stars by Caroline Cosette. This is the first book in the Out of Egypt series. Can't talk today. But this one I really enjoyed. I gave it 5 stars. It was a toss-up between 4 and 5, but honestly, as it sank in, it was very enjoyable. If you're not hugely into biblical fiction like Isaiah's Daughter, where it's set on a character in the Bible, Caroline Cosette is great for that, because she takes a character that's just, an everyday character like me, whatever, that we, just a random person who's not mentioned in the Bible, but she kind of places them in an era that's in the Bible. So in this one, we're following an Egyptian woman who, she ended up being very prosperous, and she was, pretty wealthy. Her family was wealthy, but then her father ends up selling her into slavery to get rid of his debt. And so she's like, what just happened? I had slaves of my own, and now I'm a slave. So we're following her during Moses's time in the Bible. And so we're seeing her perspective on seeing the plagues, the frogs and the locusts and everything, with her perspective. So it's like a normal person's perspective on all these things happening and not knowing what's going on. So it was really great. We see that part of the story. We see her I'm not going to spoil anything, but we see the escape of the Israelites as they escape from Pharaoh. And so it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to continue the series. I definitely will soon. So yes, I did enjoy that one a lot. All right, so the next one that I read was Husband Auditions, which this one might be closer to 4 stars, but I gave it 5. I did really enjoy it. This is by Angela Ruth Strong, and Husband Auditions, very cute cover. I love the cover so much. So I gave this one between 4 and 5 stars, and it was just a lot of fun. So if you like kind of like I don't personally like these shows, but if you like reality love TV stories, you'll like this one. So this one is about a girl who, she comes home from a wedding and she is like, just like, I'm so depressed because she is the last of her friend group. Sounds like someone I know, but the last of her friend group. She's over 30. She's still single. She's the last one to not be married. She has no prospects. And so, and like when she was catching the bouquet, she was literally the only adult woman. The rest were little girls. And so that was heartbreaking. But yeah, so she comes home and she's like, I don't know what to do with my life. And then her friend ends up giving her a list saying that, you know, if you want to do this, you know, it's something that was handed down from friend to friend and family to family. But it was a list of 100 things, 100 ways to get a husband. And it was like set, I think it was like the 1950s, I think, that this list came from. It was like a news article or something. So she was like, this is ridiculous. But her brother's friend, because she moves in with her brother and all of his roommates. Don't worry, there's like separate rooms and stuff and separate upstairs, downstairs. But her brother's friend overhears the conversation about the list, and he's like, he needs a video for an audition to work as a cameraman on a TV show. And so he's like, I wonder if I can get this girl to make a YouTube video on how to catch a husband. And so she ends up agreeing, and we see all the antics. It's fun. It's a romantic comedy, and it was a lot of fun. I did enjoy it, so definitely check it out. All right, the next one that I read, which was, I think, was that my last book of the month? I think it was. It was close to it anyways. But that was A Match in the Making by Jen Toronto. And so this one, I loved this one. My first Jen Toronto book, and I will be definitely picking up more. So this one is her newest release, which just came out, I think, about 2 weeks ago now. But this is about Gwendolyn, and I did a whole review on this one as well, so I'll make this as brief as possible. But if you missed it, I'll talk about it here. So Gwendolyn is a girl who was a paid companion to her cousin. And she kind of just wants a break from her cousin because she's kind of like a drama queen. And so she's like, okay, there is this, you know, little newspaper thing that said somebody needed a companion. So she goes, okay, I'll go for the summer. It's a summer job. I'll go and be a companion to this older woman. Well, when she gets there, this older woman had broken her leg. And she tells Gwendolyn, hey, I'm a matchmaker. I broke my leg. I can't do the work that I usually do. You're going to be my assistant matchmaker. And she's like, no, I'm not. But she ends up, you know, I mean, she has an obligation to work the summer out. So she ends up doing that. And it's just so cute. It's the antics of all the women in society and how they're so backstabbing to each other to get the best match and stuff. It's funny. And the way the way Gwendolyn kind of like tells them off, like, stop doing these things to these girls. And just the way the men are all like, there's a situation where like the men are now wanting to be assigned to the matchmaker as well, because like they're seeing that she's getting results, and now men want a matchmaker as well, even though men back then really weren't involved in that. But now we have situations where men want to have matchmakers too. So there's a lot of romance in this book. There is a lot of like couples being matched up, of course, but such perfectly matched is what I think. So you'll probably guess along the way who is being matched up with who, but it's so funny and so sweet, and I love this one. All right, I'll just put that one there. Hopefully it won't fall. All right, just 2 more to talk about now. Next one, which I do have. My mom's going to read it this month too. So I don't have that one as well. But that was Dear Henry, Love Edith by Becca Kinzer. Probably one of my favorite books of the year. I loved it. It was so funny, so sweet. It is hitting that mark of slapstick, but honestly, when you need a book, when you're just feeling down or you just really need a good belly laugh, pick this one up. It's funny, it's sweet, and I just loved it. It was great. So this is about Henry and Edith, and Edith is a woman who is going to go to Africa to work there, but her passport isn't available yet. So she has to work someplace during the summer. So she ends up volunteering in this small town, and the place that she's going to room at, the basement flooded. So she can't stay there. But the lady who owns the house says, you can stay with my Uncle Henry, my dear old Uncle Henry. And so she goes, okay, I can stay there. Well, the lady who owns the house thought that Edith was an older woman, and her dear old Uncle Henry is not old and not really super dear. But yeah, so we're following them. They never meet through like the first half of the book. Well, they do meet, but they don't know who they are, like in the town and stuff. But they never meet inside the house because Henry, he can't climb stairs. That's another reason why that they correspond through letters, and each of them thinks the other one is an older person. And so they have no problem with the other one living upstairs because the other one can't climb stairs because he's got a bum leg. And so it's funny seeing the antics of the townspeople and seeing their kind of friendship blossom into more than that. And just, it was so funny, so sweet. And I think you're going to like it if you need a fun, sweet, clean, romantic comedy. So yeah, as far as other than the middle grade books and the DNFs, all of these are Christian fiction. So you know they're clean. This one really didn't have a lot of faith content in it, so it was mostly just a clean romance, and it was a lot of fun. All right, and then the last one that I gave 5 stars, which probably would be my favorite book of the year, at least so far, and that is The Maid of Bali Mun by Jennifer Dybel. And this is my first Jennifer Dybel book, and amazing. I loved it. A Cinderella retelling, which I was not expecting. And so, yeah, a Cinderella retelling mixed with mystery and historical fiction, like, it was great. It was great. I loved it. If you like evil stepmothers and a mystery around this woman, around this girls' school, and this mysterious maid who was dropped at the doorstep of this school when she was born, or close to being, no, not born, but young. But yeah, so I did a whole review. I'll link that down as well. I don't want to spoil anything, but it was amazing. Michael is a new book crush for me. He was so sweet, so romantic, and just the hero of the story, and how he helped this girl. I loved it. If you like good evil stepmother feels and mysteries and historical romance, check this one out. You won't be disappointed. It's great. I loved it. All right, so those are all the books that I'm going to talk about. I don't have a lot physically, only because a lot were audiobooks or whatever. So I have a couple that I can show you. The rest are downstairs. So this was actually one of my lowest reading months, even though I did finish 14 books. Actually, you know what? It really wasn't that low. It was kind of average. I do finish between 14 to 20 books a month. So it was a really great reading month. A lot of 5 stars, and definitely it was a really great time. All right, so let me know what your favorite book was in February. I'd love to know down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you can hang out with the book family. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video.